Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for being a viewer. Thank you so much for being a subscriber on this special night, which is election night. For us, it's not about the red or the blue. For the entire community at Ignition Time, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about the red, white and blue. We are all Americans first. I want us to own this historic night. I want us to go out there and make our voice heard. Speaking of making our voice heard, I have some rather interesting news for you. Some experts, some financial experts were interviewed today on CNBC, and I actually follow these individuals quite closely. And they said that stimulus was going to happen regardless of who becomes president, because the economy needs it, because a new president, whoever it is, will want it, and because Congress will support it. Also, make sure you stay tuned till the end of the video, because I'll be showing you a quote from Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary, who said that if former Vice President Joe Biden loses the election tonight, it's going to come down to one mistake, to one 40-second segment towards the end of the final presidential debate that could end up costing former Vice President Joe Biden the election, according to Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary. So make sure you stick around till the end of the video for that entire segment. Let's just jump right in. Today on CNBC, Christopher Smart, who's the Barings Investment Institute head and chief global economist, along with Libby Kentrell, who's the PIMCO public policy head and managing director, they were on CNBC today and they were talking about the possibility of stimulus, where the future of the economy lies post-election day. Because keep in mind that Wall Street predicts a blue wave. There's a high probability of a blue wave as far as Wall Street is concerned. And in fact, today, the stock market ended up well over 500 points at the time I'm recording this video. So basically, the stock market has surged. And by the way, some would argue that this bodes well for the president, because whenever the stock market has surged right up to the election, leading up to the election, the incumbent president has won. But again, this has been such an unusual year. I would say nothing is off the table at this point in time. But here's something interesting that Smart said. He said, in either outcome, regardless of who wins the presidency, he said the president will push for stimulus and Congress will indeed provide it. Let me know what you think of these comments. First, let's roll the tape and see what Christopher Smart, who is the Barings Investment Institute head and chief global strategist, had to say. Let's roll the tape.
Although at the same time, Chris, it's interesting to watch the market action the last few weeks to see bond yields moving up as investors are apparently sniffing out, this Biden, the prospect of a Biden win, maybe even a blue wave. Does that tell you the limits of what investors think the Fed can do here? Or else why would interest rates be so sensitive to this outcome and the prospect for a large stimulus package?
I think investors are looking for the fiscal leg to finally kick in. We've been waiting since July, arguably, for a deal to be done. I think for all of the uncertainty around this election, it's kind of weird, frankly, to see polls that are really quite clear about the outcome and markets still very uncertain for some understandable reasons. But I think even if you look through the possibility for some delays in results, for some contested results, in either outcome, you will have a president who will be pushing for more stimulus, and you will have a Congress more or less ready to provide it. There are different ways where you can count on a bigger package or a smaller package. I think if you have a Republican Senate and Democratic president, that sets you up for a slightly smaller package. But overwhelmingly, this is a market and an economy driven by COVID, and those numbers have been getting worse. And I think that leads you to believe that we will be getting that package at least by January or February, if not sooner.
Now, in the second segment of this interview, both Smart and Cantrell were asked to comment on what would happen as far as stimulus was concerned, what would happen as far as tax policy was concerned, assuming there was a blue wave, assuming there was a Democratic sweep. Now, what's interesting is that both of them said that it was quite likely that any tax overhauls, in other words, trying to raise taxes on individuals who make $400,000 in income, or trying to raise the corporate tax rate, which is something that the Trump administration did through the massive tax overhaul in 2017, assuming that Democrats were in control of Congress, meaning the House and the Senate, would have to wait until 2022, because the immediate need of the American economy is indeed more stimulus relief. So the focus would be on stimulus right now, and tax relief would be pushed back to 2022. In fact, the consensus was, and you'll hear Smart say this, is that the current stimulus package should get passed pretty quickly. So let's roll the tape and see what both these experts had to say.
What are the odds we get some kind of stimulus package? And so those seem to be the big swing factors. We've talked about the Fed. We've talked about the stimulus package. I guess tax policy would be the next thing that looms, but would that still be a ways away, do you think?
Well, I think a major tax package is going to wait until the new Congress is settled and up and running, and the committees get their legislative pens to work. But I think we will certainly get the package that's been on the table for the last few months. That ought to get passed. That ought to get passed pretty quickly. But I think again, what will drive a lot of that is the news around COVID cases, COVID mortality, restrictions coming in certain jurisdictions. And importantly, by the way, we've got a big jobs number coming out on Friday. And to the extent that that number doesn't go down as expected in the 7.5% range, that I think is going to drive all the more eagerness to get some money out the door.
Yeah. Libby, what are you telling people about tax policy?
Yeah, well, look, I think that if Democrats were to take back Washington, their priorities will be COVID relief and healthcare. And then likely they will move their focus to an infrastructure bill and potentially pay for some of that with some tax increases. But we really think that a tax bill is really a 2022 story. Even if tax changes are passed in 2021, they will unlikely be retroactive, meaning that they will not hurt the economy or impact the economy until 2022. So we really believe that a focus of Democratic Washington will be trying to get the economy on firm footing and then trying to figure out how to pay for it. But again, probably more of a 2022 story than a 2021 story.
Now, speaking of experts, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, who's very well known for his outspoken views and for being pretty upfront about everything, was also interviewed today. And he said, I'm not an advocate of big stimulus for small business. He did talk about airlines needing bailouts. He essentially was implying that this needs to be survival of the fittest. And he, in fact, said that certain businesses related to travel, potentially related to entertainment airlines, should go through bankruptcy, should go out of business. Because what he was implying again was that, it should be survival of the fittest. He talked about his own businesses, about the fact that, his wedding brand, his whole wedding collection, his whole wedding portfolio was suffering because of the restrictions on events and social distancing. But he did say something that really jumped out at me in addition to talking about the economy and stimulus and bailouts. He said that former Vice President Joe Biden made a big mistake when he talked about fracking and when he talked about oil. Listen closely to what he said about the last 40 seconds of former Vice President Joe Biden's comments during the final presidential debate. And you can be the judge for yourself. He said that, Kevin O'Leary said that this could impact several million jobs, 8 million jobs. And this could be the difference between victory and defeat. We'll know tonight, depending on how the vote comes in. But take a look at this segment and let's take a look at what Kevin O'Leary said about the economy, stimulus, and what he called the big mistake from former Vice President Joe Biden that could potentially cost him the election. In other words, if the election does not go former Vice President Joe Biden's way, according to Kevin O'Leary, it comes down to the 40 seconds at the end of the second presidential debate. Let's roll the tape.
Kevin, you're an investor in a large number of small businesses. What do you see with the businesses that you're an investor in? What would you hope to see?
Well, because we've now gone through almost 7 months of pandemic, I have a pretty crystal clear view of what's happened to the different sectors I'm invested in. And I would take a slightly different position than John. 80% of my companies are really, really thriving, doing very well. Those that are not involved in entertainment or food services or cruise lines, that kind of thing, which we have. And the wedding industry obviously has been hurting. But the other 80% are very, very happy. And I'm a policy guy, Becky. I look at policy. People are trying to predict the outcome of this election. It's impossible because I've always thought the polls should have a sticker on them saying for entertainment value only, does not predict outcome. That's the same in every country in the world right now. But I am not an advocate now of massive stimulus for small business, and that may come as a surprise to you. Most small businesses that are going to survive have figured out how to do that now. I would rather see, and John and I disagree on this a little bit, most of this capital going to employees of sectors like the airline industry, which I think has to go through bankruptcy to get the right capacity. For people that are displaced in restaurants, I want to support those employees for the next 14 months, regardless of who's president. And I will say one thing regarding the outcome. I got no policy from the debates, except for that moment in the second debate when it became clear. And I'm just speaking now for what I'm going to make a prediction about the outcome tonight. And if Biden, in fact, loses, it'll be because of a 40-second dialogue regarding shutting down the hydrocarbon infrastructure, where in my investing world, we think about 8 million jobs exist in the steel industry and the fracking industry. Many people don't realize 41% of fracking is done on federal land. So if you close that down, I don't want to be biased, one president versus the other, but if you're a family in Pennsylvania, in Texas, in Ohio, it affects your entire livelihood. And that was not lost in that debate. I think if Biden loses, we will go back and see that as the pivotal point where he lost major swing states. He should have never talked about shutting down hydrocarbons. A big fail on that one.
And in case you're wondering what exactly Kevin O'Leary was talking about, here's a segment of former Vice President Joe Biden talking about his opinion, his approach towards this exact subject at the end of the second presidential debate. Let's roll the tape.
I have never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I really appreciate you watching. If you don't know anything about me, please check out my video. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. Keep in mind, we release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week. That's 2 p.m. You can get your cell phone out, send a text message with the word ignition or with the word time to 70,000. That's 70000, and then you'll get added to our SMS alerts list moving forward. Now, you can also get added to our email list. Simply go to ignitiontime.com/alerts. That's ignitiontime.com/alerts, and then you'll get added to our email list going forward. You can opt out of our SMS list or our email list at any point in time. No worries about that. Now, keep in mind, sometimes YouTube does not always send out notifications on time. So simply bookmark youtube.com/ignitiontime. That's youtube.com/ignitiontime. And then you can visit our channel any time that you want. You can also follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is ignition_time. That's ignition_time. So make sure you follow us there. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is also ignition_time. That's ignition_time. So follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter community is growing. Speaking of community, I encourage you to comment below and participate in our growing community because we have a fun, engaging, respectful, diverse, vibrant community. So definitely become a part of our community. If you learned something from this video, please ignite the like button, please ignite that subscribe button, and please enable notifications because remember, the name of our channel is Ignition Time. That would be your vote of confidence in us, and that does help out the YouTube algorithm. As always, you'll find the links to all our resources in the description section below, so check them out if you want to dig deeper into the content. And also please share this video with friends and family. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.